decided to waive it, to waive hearing. Yeah, that was, Willows. It's actually on this, I added it on here. It's on
All right, good morning. If everyone will be seated, I'd like to call the January 15th meeting of the Montecito Planning Commission to order and ask everybody to rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We'll have our TV coverage announcement next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the Commission. Montecito Planning Commission hearings are televised live on County Santa Barbara Television, CSB TV, Channel 20 at 9 a.m. in the South Coast, Lompoc, San Ynez Valley, San Maria, and Orchid areas. Rebroadcasts of Montecito Planning Commission hearings are on Fridays at 5 p.m. on CSB TV Channel 20. Today's hearing will also be streamed live on the county's website and will be available for download in a day or two. Would you like me to continue on to the roll call?
Please.
All right, great. Commissioner Kupiak. Here. Commissioner Senauer.
Here.
Commissioner Police.
Here.
Chair Newman. Here. And for the record, Commissioner Keller is absent today.
All right, our first administrative agenda item after these formalities, so to speak, is the election of the Montecito 2020 Planning Commission Chair, First Vice Chair, and Second Vice Chair. Chair will entertain a motion.
Chairman.
Would you turn on
I
your mic?
nominate Charles Newman as the chairman.
All right. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All right. I'd like to take a break for a moment. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Back on the record. Motion's been made. Any discussion? All right. Let's take a vote.
Commissioner Kupiak.
Aye.
Commissioner Senauer.
No.
Commissioner Police.
Aye.
Chair Newman.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1.
All right. Nominations are open for First Vice Chair for 2020.
I nominate Donna Senauer. Second.
Would you speak in the mic, please?
I'm sorry. Turn it on. I nominate Donna Senauer as second vice chair.
All right. Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Commissioner Police seconds the motion. Any discussion? All right. We'll proceed to a vote.
Commissioner Kupiak.
Aye.
Commissioner Senauer.
No.
Commissioner Police.
Aye.
Chair Newman.
Well, if you want to serve
Don't want to serve what?
as First Vice Chair?
It was for second. Wasn't that the motion?
No, I thought the motion was first vice chair.
First Vice Chair.
No. My answer is no. I do not want to serve as first vice chair.
Can we still have that recess?
Yeah, I think we'll go in recess. All right, back and reconvene the meeting.
Chair Newman, just to recap where we're at, there was a motion for Chair Newman to be nominated as chair for 2020. That motion was passed as 3-1. There's currently a motion on the floor right now for Commissioner Sinauer to be first vice chair. That motion currently has not, that vote hasn't concluded, so that motion is still on the floor and needs to be concluded.
All right. So the motion has been made and seconded for Donna Senauer to serve as first vice chair. Discussion?
Yeah, there isn't.
Commissioner Kupiec?
You know what, I mean, and I know I made the first motion that has been passed, but there is a normal succession process that's here. And I don't want there to appear to be any confusion about the fact that Donna's completely capable of being the chair of this commission. And I would support her if she would prefer to have that position.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. Can there be a redo? Is that possible?
Yes, I think the answer is a motion to reconsider could be made, but we have to deal with the motion that's on the floor at the present time.
So Chair Newman, Commissioners, the motion that's currently on the floor, the motion maker could withdraw that motion, and then it's within the broad discretion of the commission if they wanted to entertain any other motions today.
I withdraw the motion.
All right. Second withdraw?
Yes, second withdrawal.
All right. So is there a motion to reconsider the selection of the chair for 2020? Chair will entertain such a motion.
I nominate Donna Senauer as chairman.
First, we have to have a motion to reconsider. So the chair will entertain a motion to reconsider the selection for chair for 2020. Anybody care to make such a motion?
I make that motion.
All right, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Okay, we'll go to a vote.
Commissioner Kupiec.
Aye.
Commissioner Senauer.
No.
Commissioner Police.
Aye.
Chairman Newman.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1.
Now, we'll then proceed to elect a chair for 2020. Nominations are open.
I nominate Donna Senauer.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Commissioner Senauer?
I do not wish to be considered for chair.
All right. In view of that statement, does the maker of the motion want to withdraw the motion and the second want to withdraw?
Well, I would wonder if Donna would reconsider. I think there is a normal succession process. I think we're a collegial board. I'm very happy to serve on this board with you as the chair.
Thank you. My answer remains the same. I do not wish to be considered for chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we could postpone this discussion until we have a full board. And you would just remain as chair until the next meeting, and that's a possibility.
Thank you. All right.
I move that we postpone the election to the next meeting.
All right. Well, wait just a second. There's one motion on the floor already that Commissioner Kupiak made to have Commissioner Senauer serve as chair. And I believe that motion has been seconded. So before we can consider any other motion, we have to deal with the motion on the table. So unless the motion is withdrawn, we'll proceed to a vote.
Are we still in discussion?
Yes, Commissioner Senauer.
I hope my wish is respected by this commission, that I do not wish to serve as chair. Thank you.
Then,
All right, further discussion?
no. Reluctantly, I withdraw my motion.
I guess I withdraw the second.
All right. Now, nominations then are reopened for election for 2020 Chair of the Montecito Planning Commission. Anybody care to make a motion?
Well, I think
I'd like to move that we postpone the election until we have a 5-member board next meeting.
I second that motion.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's fine. I just wanted to make clear it's a motion to continue the item, if that's what you'd wish.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded to continue the election of, and let me make this as a suggestion for friendly of all the officers for the commission until the next meeting when all 5 commissioners are present. Is that the sense of the motion?
Yes, that's the motion.
And the second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. All right. We'll go to a vote.
Commissioner Kupiak,
Aye.
Commissioner Senauer, Commissioner Felice,
Aye.
and Chair Newman.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Now, let's go to the next item on our agenda, the agenda status report.
Chair Newman, members of the commission, the status of the agenda today is there was one item that was continued from a prior hearing, and that's on the standard agenda, item number 1, which is the Hawker Philippides lot line adjustment. And staff is ready to prepare to present on that continuance. And then we do have the standard item of the Thomas Fire and Generator Debris Flow Rebuilding Report. Staff is ready to present on those items today for the commission. That concludes the agenda status report.
All right, thank you. We'll next proceed to public comment. If there's anybody who would like to make a public comment about something that is not on the agenda today.
So Chair Newman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we get to public comment, we do have the projection report.
Excuse me, thank you.
If you wanted to go into that. The item, it's really brief. The item is currently, the only item projected is for February 19th, and that is the, we currently have it projected for the annual progress report of the comprehensive plan update by Long Range Planning, and there isn't anything else projected throughout the year. One thing that we may bring up at the next hearing is typically every year we do have a shuffle on meeting schedules due to the budget review cycle. So I'll work with Mr. Villalobos to come up with potential alternate dates for that hearing. And I think it's the one in April that usually lands on the same day as the board budget briefings or budget process. So we'll come up with alternative dates by the next hearing. And I know that's 4 months out, but looking down the road, we want to get ahead of that before we scramble at that hearing. So that's it. That concludes the projection report at this time.
All right, thank you. Anybody, again, we'll go then to public comment. If anybody who's present today has public comment on something that is not on the agenda, would you please come forward? Okay, seeing no one, we'll then proceed. Planning Commissioners' informal reports. Anybody have anything to report? Commissioner Senor.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the Montecito GSA Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting yesterday, and we were basically given a presentation on the status of going forward with the GSP, a groundwater sustainability plan for Montecito. And the presentation was about 3 hours, and it included a DUDEC report on their status at this time and gathering data, doing a meta-analysis, and getting prepared for the board was getting prepared to offer two applications, one for a citizen advisory committee and a technical advisory committee. And those applications will be on the website soon, and I believe the next meeting is February 24th. Thank you.
Yeah,
Any other commissioner disclosures? Commissioner Kupiec?
I had two ex parte. I had a visit to the Arcady site.
We'll take that up at the agenda.
The agenda item? Okay. All right. That was it. I have nothing else to report.
All right. For myself, I attended the Montecito Association's Land Use Committee meeting on January 7th. All right. Let's next go to agenda item. Commissioner Center.
I'm sorry, may I also report a future event that perhaps the community is all interested in? I would hope so. It's at the Natural History Museum on Sunday, January 26, 3 to 5. 2 years after fire and flood, a community conversation forum of the impacts of the Thomas Fire and January 9th debris flow. It has a whole plethora of very astute scientists, as well as Tom Fayram and Sarah Anderson with Bren, about 4 different Bren School participants, as well as Sigrid Wright from CEO. So I think you should mark your calendar. It should be a wonderful presentation and a community forum. Thank you.
All right, proceeding on then to the minutes. Let's first turn to the minutes of the special hearing on December 12th. Are there any comments, corrections, or additions to those minutes?
No.
Your light's on. I have one. In the upper right-hand corner, it says that it has 9 a.m. up there for the time the meeting convened. Commissioner Center?
Yes, I'd like to give a positive comment on the special hearing minutes of December 12th. I think it's of import to have the speakers listed under public comment. It is just very helpful, and also it is helpful to basically highlight their comment. So I would hope we could perhaps do that here at this commission at some point. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on the minutes for December 12th? All right, if not, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the correction as to the time. Is there such a motion?
I so move. I so move.
All right, moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Then proceeding to the minutes of December 18. Anybody have any comments, additions, or whatever to those minutes? All right, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as published.
All right, been moved. Anybody's been seconded? All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, next we'll go to the Director's Report and Board of Supervisors hearing summary. Please.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the last we met was on the 18th, and the board had their first hearing yesterday. And Greg Hart, Supervisor Hart, is the new chair of the board. We didn't have, we had a few items on the administrative agenda, but that was about it. And so there wasn't a lot that happened at the board yesterday. We'll start seeing more things come up on their agenda, but there's a lot of process that happens that first board hearing. We did have one thing I wanted to share with you is the emergency permit for the debris nets was issued after our last meeting with the Montecito Planning Commission, I believe on the 20th of December, 19th or 20th of December. So that is a year-long permit that allows them to maintain those nets. They do have a development plan in the permit process now that we're working through with them that will address the long-term maintenance and then the removal of those nets eventually. So that will be moving through the process and will eventually come back to the commission. I did want to let you know that the 101 project is going to be heard by the County Planning Commission on the 29th of January. So they will be, it's for the, is it a briefing? Yeah, it's a briefing on the widening. Oh, it's the actual permits. Okay, it's the actual permits on the widening. 29th of January, yeah.
Okay, is that concluded?
That concludes it unless there's any questions.
All right, any questions or comments?
I have a question. Is that permit for one phase, a whole phase, or what? Do you know what that is?
I believe it's for one phase. And
It's not in Montecito, right?
it is 4B and 4C. So it's the City of Carpinteria boundary to Sheffield Drive interchange.
Thank you.
All right. I just have a question about some other things that have been hanging out there with the Board of Supervisors.
Sure.
Short-term rentals.
So we are in the process of, I think I mentioned to you, we're bringing on-call consultants. So we're in the process of doing that right now. We have one final step to get to the board, and then we're going to be selecting a consultant to assist us with the short-term rental project.
Okay. And then also kind of relatedly, that ADU law, as I understand, has been amended again.
Correct.
And will we be seeing that again?
Well, what happened January 1 was the state law is now in effect, right? So our ADU program is no longer effective. So we are going to be amending our ordinance to catch up to the state changes, and long-range staff is currently working on that.
So there'll be an ordinance package on that coming to us?
That's correct.
It's
a few months out.
Okay. Is this all going to be in the work plan that we're going to review next month?
Yes. I mean, we can discuss those items. All of those items are in the memorandum.
Okay. And then also of interest in the community project, the Montecito Sanitary District, has that application been received, and is it in process, or what's the status?
Just received an email on that, and they are working towards submitting their development plan application.
it's
the
not yet
county.
been filed.
It's not yet been filed, is my understanding, but let me just double check that really quick.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions. Any other questions or comments? All right. Project status update. Next item.
So Chair Newman, I don't have anything to report at this time. However, I think we do include a table in the report, so that might be trailed to like the end of the Thomas Fire rebuilding presentation.
All right. And then moving on to the waive public hearing, I just have a question. Is that date correct in the paragraph, January 30th of 2020?
So Chair Newman, just again, that is just a noticing requirement for waive public hearing, and it's just to submit any requests by January 30th. So
Right,
there's no
I'm just
action-
asking whether
yeah.
that's the correct date to know whether the notice is correct. That's the only question I'm raising.
Yeah, just to clarify, Mr. Chair, I just rechecked the notice that we sent out, and it does clearly say the 30th, so that is correct.
Okay. All right, unless somebody wants to take this off of the waiver, and we can't. All right.
Yeah.
Fine. All right, we'll next go then to the standard agenda item 1. And I guess we'll first hear from the staff on that after we announce the item.
Yeah.
So Chairman, can we take a couple minute break to get set up with staff on this one?
Sure, of course. So we'll be in recess. All right, we're ready to go back on the record. Before we proceed, been reminded, ex partes communications or site visits to be disclosed by any commissioners.
Mr. Chair, before we do that, let me just read the item into the record.
All right.
The following is on hearing on the request of Brian Banks, agent for the owners, Athena Philippides, and Craig Hawker to consider case number 16 LLA3, application filed on April 28, 2016, and to determine the project is exempt pursuant to section 15305A of the state guidelines for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act.
All right, ex parte or site visit disclosures by commissioners. Commissioner Kupiec?
I both visited the site yesterday with Mrs. Philippides, and I also had a meeting with Jim Patillo, a member of the Homeowners Association, to discuss the lot line adjustment.
Commissioner Sanauer?
Yes, and I met on Friday, the 10th, with the applicant and spent at the site and spent about a half hour at the site. Thank you.
Commissioner Police?
I likewise spent about a half hour on the site with the applicant last week. And I've taken various calls. I don't recall who they all were. Opposing.
And for myself, I also visited the property and met with the applicant on Friday, the 10th. All right. So we'll proceed with the staff presentation, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy New Year. My name is Catherine Lair. I am the case planner on this project and will continue to be. So we put this presentation together as kind of a overview of what brought us here today, and we're happy to answer any questions after the presentation.
I think the short answer is we brought ourselves here today. This is a bit of a redo.
So the project site is located south of Sycamore Canyon Road and east of Eucalyptus Hill Road, near Lotus Land and Westmont College. So the background, which is condensed specifically for today's hearing, as detailed in section 5.3 of the staff report, in June of 2015, the board granted a certificate of compliance demonstrating the existence of two separate legal lots. With this action, the existing dwelling was found to be straddling those lot lines as existing. In 2016, the applicant submitted an application for a lot line adjustment to adjust a shared property line. In October of 2019, county staff presented the proposed lot line to the Montecito Planning Commission, and at that meeting, the commissioners requested that the item be continued and that staff prepare findings for denial that address lot size, neighborhood compatibility, and the development potential for the vacant lot, which is Lot 1. So just an overview of the project site. Lot 1 is 0.99 acres. Lot 2 is 0.19 acres. Lot 1 and 2 are separate, existing, and legal lots created as a result of the board's action in 2015. There's the existing dwelling straddling that lot line. So a lot line adjustment, as defined, is the adjustment of lot lines between two or more adjacent parcels where land is taken from one parcel and added to another adjacent parcel, and where no greater number of parcels will be created. So basically, you're just moving the property line. You come in with two parcels and you leave with two parcels, albeit different sizes and or shapes. So the lot line adjustment today before the commission is a request to adjust the shared property boundary shown here on the screen in green, between existing Lot 1, shown in blue, and existing Lot 2, shown in yellow, so that the existing dwelling, shown in purple, will be located wholly on a single lot. The boundaries are proposed to be adjusted as follows. Lot 2, which is the yellow one, will increase in size from 0.19 acre to half an acre, and Lot 1 will decrease in size from 0.99 acres to 0.68. The approval of the lot line adjustment will adjust the property lines, bringing the existing dwelling into conformance with the MLUDC setback requirements. And on approval of the lot line adjustment, the existing residence would meet the requirements of the 2E1 zone district and will continue to adhere to its permitted existence. No development is proposed at this time. And this proposed lot line adjustment is an adjustment of the shared property boundary between two legal lots. This project, if approved, will not subdivide any lots or result in a lot split. So this is the same graphic provided in attachment B of staff's memo. As noted, the surrounding parcel size average 0.96 acres. Both lots are currently non-conforming as to size for their respective zone district, which is in fact 2 acres. And the lot line adjustment, as noted, would merely adjust the shared property line. So the existing Lot 1 is 0.99 acres, existing lot is 0.19 as shown on slide 4. If the lot line adjustment would be approved, Lot 2 would increase in size, Lot 1 would decrease, but this action would bring both of the parcels to more of that kind of mid-range around half an acre or greater. Additionally, the approval of the lot line adjustment would address the issue of the existing dwelling that currently straddles the shared property line. Denial of the proposed project would perpetuate the existing issue with the dwelling and would prevent the properties from coming into conformance with the Montecito Land Use and Development Code. Denial of the project would not change the existing legal status of the two separate lots. In conclusion, staff continues to recommend that the Montecito Planning Commission approve the proposed lot line adjustment, case number 16 LLA3, and make the required findings for approval, including the CEQA findings in the staff report dated October 16th, 2019. Determine the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines sections 15305A as specified in attachment C of the staff report, and approve the project, case number 16 LLA3, subject to the conditions of approval included as attachment B of the staff report dated October 16th. Alternatively, if the Montecito Planning Commission decides to take a different direction and deny the project, the Commission should make the required findings for denial of the project specified in attachment A of staff's memorandum dated January 15th, including the CEQA findings, and determine that denial of the project is exempt for CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines sections 15270B, included as attachment B of staff's memo dated January 15th, 2020, and deny the project, case number 16 LLA3. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you for that. Concludes the staff presentation. Are there questions of staff from any commissioners? Commissioner Kupiec?
So, in light of the fact that these are currently two separate lots, based upon the fact that there's a non-conforming existing use straddling one of those lots, if the other lot were to be developed, what zoning restrictions would there be on it? I mean, what's a rear yard? How far does a building have to be from another building that's already there in a non-conforming use? I just don't understand. I want to understand clearly how Lot A gets used in its current status. If the lot line adjustment were not there, how would I build on proposed Lot 1? It's a separate lot.
Commissioner Kupiec through the chair. So in order to build on proposed lot 1, shown in blue on the screen, the location of the existing dwelling would have to be addressed. The property owner has their own options. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but the dwelling would either have to be moved, modified, or rebuilt to be solely on one of the parcels, which would be lot 2, shown in yellow, and then another permit for...
Is an easement not a vehicle that can be used?
No, the lot line is the best solution, because a lot line would adjust the property line.
I'm not asking for the best solution. I'm asking for a question that says, is Lot 1 developable in any way?
Yes.
Without demolishing the existing structure?
No, the violation would have to be addressed for lot 1 to be developable. That being said, there are no other legal preclusions from developing that lot. It is merely the existence of this violation. Once that is remedied, lot 1 is able to be developed.
But without remedying the lot line, lot 1 is undevelopable?
At this time.
Other than, because I really just want to be clear about what impacts can happen. I mean, I can put an ADU on that site. Well, if I consider this one lot.
So this is not one lot. There are two separate legal lots.
Right. So the truth of the matter is, on lot 1, in its current form, an accessory structure could not be built.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff? I have one for myself. Can we go to slide, I think it's 7? Excuse me, it's not lines. It's slide 5. And can you superimpose the house? I'm sorry, it's the next one then. with the house on?
It's grayed out.
Okay. In this configuration, if the lot line adjustment were to occur as shown here, would the existing home on proposed Lot 2 conform as to the setback requirements?
Chair Newman, yes.
All right. And then can we go to the slide before this one? Is it correct, put the house on, please. Is it correct that in the present configuration, the house does not comply with the setback requirements?
That is correct.
Okay. And then one other question with respect to slide 6 with the surrounding parcels. Did all of the parcels within this circle receive notice as to this application?
Chair Newman, yes, that is correct.
I have no further questions. Any other questions? Commissioner Center?
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about service, both sewer and water to each parcel. Could you please go into that, please?
Commissioner Senauer through the chair. So both parcels are required to have adequate services. That includes access, water, and sanitation. At this time, both parcels, as part of staff's review, do have these services and are able to be served separately.
And on parcel 1, it was the water moratorium that precluded the water meter installation, is that correct?
That is correct. When this lot line application initially came in, there was a moratorium on water meters. Since that time, the moratorium has been lifted, and the applicant has worked with the Montecito Water District to provide us a letter of service.
I have one more
Commissioner
question.
Police?
Thank you. As far as is there easements that go across Lot A to B for those services?
There are currently easements on Lot 1 that go along the line right here. If you can see my cursor on the southern portion of Lot 1. And these easements include, I believe, sanitary. The water meter is closer to the front of the property on Eucalyptus.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kupiec?
So in terms of development, I just kind of want to be clear, and for me and for my fellow commissioners, one could also pursue eliminating a lot line and adjoining 1 and 2 and creating one single lot.
Commissioner Kupiec through the chair, that is correct. It would be the applicant that would need to pursue that action.
But just to be clear so that we understand what development impact can be, if that were done, knowing a little bit about what the new requirements are for overall site development, I could build an ADU, I could build a guest house, I could build a swimming pool, I could build a workshop, and all fit that onto lots 1 and 2 legally.
Commissioner Kupiec through the chair, potentially we would have to evaluate the proposed development as it comes in because Montecito has a number of guidelines that
No, I know those guidelines, but us
Potentially.
architects are here to skin the cat pretty deep. So
Potentially, yes.
I just want to kind of set a tone that says, this is a developable parcel in some way. I mean, if I owned this parcel, I would be either developing it the way it's proposed, or I would be increasing its value by creating other structures on Lot 1.
Sure,
And those are all potentials for development.
that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from commissioners? All right, thank you, staff. We'll next hear from the applicant. And let me just state at the beginning, before this matter goes any further, we appreciate that the interest in this matter is very keen, and we welcome all the input, both that's been received in written comment as well as people who are here today to participate. That said, I'd like to suggest that people focus their comments on the merits of the project and not disparage the applicant or anybody else. Speak to the merits alone. And then lastly, I'll ask council to confirm, but I believe that our commission is bound by and must accept the determination of the Board of Supervisors with respect to the determination of the lots, and we're not free to revisit that in any way today.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's correct. In 2015, the board directed the county surveyor to issue the 2 certificates of compliance, which resulted in the 2 lots. So that's established.
All right, thank you. So with that said, we'll first hear from the applicant. If you'd identify yourself for the record and also indicate how much time you would like to present to us.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Matt Carlson. I'm an attorney with Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck that represents Drs. Athena Philippides and Craig Hawker on this matter. I think we'll look for about 5 minutes, but I'd like to reserve some time at the end to come back and answer any questions that your commission may have. Great. Again, we completely agree with staff's report. Before your commission today is a simple lot line adjustment with an admittedly complex history. Craig and Athena began this process 7 years ago at the request of the county to address the backyard setback issue. There's additional background in the letter I submitted, but we really just hope to address this lot line adjustment issue here today. Athena and their project planner, Brian Banks, are both here also to answer questions, any questions that you may have. My presentation, per the request of the chair, will focus on the matter, again here today, the lot line adjustment. To supplement and to add to staff's great report, I just want to emphasize a few things. Athena and Craig own 2 separate legal parcels. The seller of the property to Athena and Craig own 2 separate legal parcels. They bought the property knowing they were buying 2 separate legal parcels. The certificates of compliance reflect the fact that there are 2 separate legal parcels as determined by the board. They have the right to develop both of these legal lots. This lot line adjustment is solely to eliminate the encroachment issue. No other development is proposed, no changes to the existing home are proposed, no changes to the vacant lot are proposed. There's been a lot of comments regarding the decision associated with the legitimacy of this lot line adjustment based on lot size. Both of these parcels are non-conforming as to size. The county zoning requirements are 2 acre zoning requirements. Most of the neighborhood does not conform to this 2 acre zoning requirement, and even if these 2 parcels were combined, they would not comply with the 2 acre zoning requirement. This is simply about modifying the boundaries of the property to address the county's request to deal with the backyard setback issue, and realistically, the 2 adjusted parcels will look more in line with the community character and I would essentially be unnoticeable from the street whether or not these 2 parcels, once these 2 parcels are about a half an acre in size. Your commission can easily make the findings for the lot line adjustment. Excuse me. Next, I'd like to refute the refute the findings of denial in the staff report. This twisted findings of denial just cannot be made. They don't reflect the law and they don't reflect the facts of the situation here. The first determination is based on the fact that the 2 parcels will be non-conforming following the lot line adjustment. However, the county code states no parcel involved in a lot line adjustment that conforms to the minimum size of the zone district in which is located shall become non-conforming. That's the key. Conforming to non-conforming. We only have non-conforming parcels here. The size of the parcels in relation to the neighborhood has no relationship to this finding. Therefore, the commission cannot legitimately base the size of the parcels on the neighborhood character to deny this project. Second, staff had to assert that the parcels are not residentially developable. This is patently false. There are 2 lots as reflected in the certificates of compliance. The applicant has a variety of approaches that he and she could employ to develop both parcels now, and that will not change regardless of the decision here today. In fact, staff's only evidence that these parcels are not residentially developable, that the Arcady home straddles the property boundary, is the very reason we're here today. It just doesn't make sense. It's the snake eating its tail. If the commission is going to deny the applicant the right to move the lot line to address the county at the request of the county to address this issue. To deny the lot line adjustment would be effectively to endorse the continued nonconformity with this backyard setback requirement. Craig and Athena understand the neighbors' concerns expressed at the last hearing and the comment letters, and they all reflect a deep desire to protect the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood, the beautiful streets. Protecting neighborhood character is important in the Montecito development process. The place for that is during the development review of a development application. There's no bearing on neighborhood character in this finding requirement for a lot line adjustment. If Craig and Athena elect to develop these parcels and when they do, they will follow the normal process going through the Montecito Board of Architectural Review and potentially even your planning commission for that development. Again, the issue before you today is only whether the lot line adjustment complies with the requirements of the county zoning code. We agree with staff that it does. Approval of the lot line adjustment will end this long journey to bring the parcels into compliance. To that end, we simply ask that you approve the lot line adjustment per staff's recommendation. Again, thank you for your consideration. Athena, Brian Banks, and I are here to address any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we'll proceed to public comment with respect to the proposal. We have a number of comment slips. If anybody in the audience does want to participate in public comment and has not filled out a slip, would you please get one in the back of the room and return it to the box on my right?
Chair Newman, if we could interject a quick request. I think there's a couple letters that came in past the cutoff. If we could have a determination by the commission on whether or not to vote those in the record before public comment, it might assist someone if they're wondering if they should make a public comment today or not.
I was going to hold that because if the writers of the letters are here during public comment, it might not be necessary. But
So Chairman, thank you. One reason by the request is so that the members of the public know what's in the record or not. And so it might be good to make a decision on those so that they know whether or not they need to speak.
all right. Could you identify specifically those items and we'll decide what to do with them?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so there was one letter that was attached to, or I'm sorry, there were two submittals. One was the email with attachments from Tony Wall from yesterday with the petition attached. And there was also a submission, it was a photo book by the applicant. And those were the two that were submitted after the deadline.
All right. Commissioner Senor, you want to comment about these items?
Just a question on criteria what is the cutoff for accepting more than one page? Thank you.
So for the Montecito Planning Commission, the deadline is Friday at noon, the Friday before the hearing. So in this case, it would have been on the 10th.
All right. I would only add for our consideration that the agenda and materials were posted a bit later than usual, so that may account for some delay here. So what is the pleasure of the commission with respect to the two identified items? Would you like them included in the record or not? And we'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Senor?
I move that these two items that are identified as the Tony Wall email and the photographs of the applicant be submitted into the record. Thank you.
All right. Is there a second to the motion?
I second it. I second that.
All right. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we'll now proceed to public comment, and Mr. Villalobos has all of the public comment slips received, and we'll call each of you to the podium. We'd like you, if possible, please, to limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you need more time, please advise us at the beginning, and he will announce who is to come to the podium and who's on deck, please.
Our first speaker will be Tracy Wilfong, to be followed by Bob Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, if you want to come up to the on-deck circle, it's right by the podium, please. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Tracy Wilfong. The Arcady Estates is important to me. My parents lived here for 16 years and restored 2 homes, plus the entry gates on Sycamore Canyon Road. I realize that you have already said or explained how there are 2 lots here, but I do question how those 2 lots were created, each under 1 acre. Do not allow LLA that would further corrupt the integrity of this historic area. It is not fair to the other homeowners, and it is a bad precedent. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next is Bob Lewis, to be followed by Pam Talbot.
Thank you very much. I will only take a couple of minutes. I have, my wife and I both have moved here. I lived here about 7 years, about the same time as the applicant. And we have certainly people that are very closely affected to this that want to speak. I will let them speak. I'd like to reserve the right to come back if I have additional comments, because I think theirs would be much more studied and learned. I do have a question on the original purchase of the property by the applicant. I believe it was sold as a single property, and I understand that this decision was made in 2015. We were here in 2015. We live here all year round, and we live in our house. We don't rent out or anything like that. And the property was purchased by the applicant and has been a rental the entire time. And I think that this decision that was made in 2015 is very interesting because it was purchased as a single lot. And that lot was created, in my knowledge, my limited, but interested from a historical standpoint, that's one of the reasons why we chose the neighborhood, that had to conform to Arcady standards, which was 1 acre or thereabouts. And for it to be separate legal lines or legal lots now is very surprising. We were not notified of this action, this possibility. And so perhaps much of the comment you'll hear today will be quite in surprise that this is now considered legal lots. We were not known or not made aware of this. So, thank you very much.
Next speaker will be Pam Talbot, to be followed by Amy Lewis.
Hi, I'm Pam Talbot. I live at 710.
Could you put the
Knapp,
microphone closer to your...
Which is essentially across the street from this property. And as it exists now, it's already very much out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. By dividing this and developing both lots, it's going to be even more out of character. It doesn't seem as if it's going to continue the look, the feel, the tone of the neighborhood that we all came to live in and to purchase property in.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Amy Lewis, to be followed by Patricia Jackamin.
Hi, I'm Amy Lewis. I have a couple of pages, but a couple of notes. First of all, I noticed that the project lawyer at the beginning described this property as being close to Lotus Land and to Westmont, but failed to admit that the property is located in a small historic neighborhood for the Knapp Estate. We are a smaller neighborhood of about 30 homes, and it looks about that just about everybody who's able to be here is here today. The second lawyer mentioned that Athena and Craig bought 2 parcels, but they did not buy 2 lots. The builder of this house originally settled this house straddling both parcels with the intent that one house sit on the property. Now, Craig and Athena bought this property with the intent from the get-go to make this 2 rental units. They've been working on this for 7 years, said the lawyer, the second lawyer. I would like to say this is not about Arcady. This is really a very broad issue. Here we are as a community. We are a semi-rural community. We have no water. We have an infrastructure that you know better than I do. It supports our very small population of Montecito. And we are discussing a change in lot structure in a historic neighborhood to add 2 rental units. Now, I know that lawyers can tell you the difference between units and houses, but neighbors don't know the difference between units and houses. If we decide to do this, what is the message that we send the people in other neighborhoods? What is the message that we're sending those people who have properties in the red zones? I think this is very important. If we agree that an investor can stand up against her neighbors and her entirety of the neighborhood association and cut her property to add rental houses, rental units, then based on this decision here, what can we say to other investors who would like to take advantage of the currently depressed properties all around here in Montecito and in the red zone? Are we saying that a person can come in and take a 10-acre or 5-acre property and increase that now based on this decision here to a 10-acre property? Is this going to be Montecito when we finish doing this? Is this the goal, to increase the density? Because this is where this decision is headed. And I think it's important to consider
If you could wrap
this
up,
message.
please.
This is where this decision is headed, to increase density. You know, it's the first step. It's another step. We're saying it's okay. We need to keep Montecito Montecito. This isn't
Thank you.
Santa Barbara. Thank you.
After Ms. Jacomine, the next speaker will be James Patillo.
I'm Patricia Jackman, and I just want to say that I am completely against the proposal by Athena. And I think that Amy spoke very well and pretty much said what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be James Patillo, to be followed by Cheryl Doty.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, my name is James Patillo. I'm an attorney, but I'm retired and I'm not here representing any client. I'm here as president of the Arcady Estates Association, an association of 30 homeowners owning properties which were once part of the original Knapp estate. I personally live at 821 Knapp Drive, which is within the old Knapp estate. The board of directors of the association has unanimously adopted a resolution instructing me to appear here and to state the opposition of the association to the proposed lot line adjustment. Although there may already be 2 legal lots involved in this matter, one of them cannot be built on in its present configuration because of the encroachment of the house at 740 Arcady Road onto it, which means that your granting the proposed adjustment is the moral equivalent of a lot split. Thus, your decision should be made on the basis that the proposed action is, in effect, a lot split. I oppose the granting of the proposed lot line adjustment for 2 reasons. First, granting the proposed lot line adjustment would effectively freeze the existing house at 740 Arcady Road in place forever. Even after the lot line adjustment, it would be non-conforming, so if it were torn down, it could not be rebuilt. So it never will be torn down. However, if the lot line adjustment is denied, then, as Commissioner Kupiec pointed out, in the future, someone may purchase both lots, remove the house at 740 Arcady, and build a single larger house located more centrally on the property. From the standpoint of neighborhood property values, this would be more desirable. Second, because the existing dwelling straddles the property line between the two lots, no new dwelling can be built until the existing structure is entirely on one legal lot. This means that Lot 2 cannot presently be built on. So approval of the proposed lot line adjustment would allow Lot 2 to be built on, which would increase the density of dwellings in the neighborhood. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cheryl Doty, to be followed by Tony Wall.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Doty, and I have property at 818 Knapp Drive. I've owned it for 20 years. I bought the property in a rural area, an estate property, a private road where I pay association fees. I believe Athena is a member of that association. So I'm just here to preserve. I spent $12,000 on a historical report for my property years ago to preserve. And I hope that this board says no, opposes it. And lastly, I have a question. If Montecito Design Review Board denied this lot split, I think the county should.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Wall, to be followed by Gretchen Leaf.
Good morning. My name is Tony Wall, and I live at 760 Arcady Road. I've lived there for over 20 years and raised my family there. It was mentioned at the last hearing before this commission that they were interested in hearing about the community and what the community thought. And we were asked to go out, Mr. Snyder and I, to go out and hear from the community. The community has spoken, and I thank you for agreeing to take into the record the petition I submitted after the Friday date. And that was because it was submitted a little late because it was a constant process of people updating. So 20 people in the community signed the petition. Many of them are here today. No one in Arcady supports what Athena is doing today. Also, the if you could put up that screen, I guess, do I have a pointer? It's here. That shows the circle with the other properties. So, how does the pointer work?
Just use a little red button in the center of that pointer.
There we go.
There you go.
So this is the property. This is opposed. Outside of Arcady, these people are opposed. These people are opposed. These people are opposed. These people are opposed. They've all signed petitions. Ms. Hawker had a petition she submitted that showed 3 people supporting it. All 3 of those people have revoked. There is nobody in the surrounding area. Those people oppose what she is doing. People who were previously neutral on it have now signed a petition. No one is in support of her. Everybody here is opposed. The only people who are here on behalf of Ms. Philippides are those who are paid representatives to be here. In regard to what, I've also mentioned that I am an attorney like Mr. Patillo, but I'm not here representing anybody other than myself. The letter that was submitted by Mr. Carlson is very misleading. It presents this idea that Ms. Philippides is doing this with no intent to increase her ability to develop the property. It was merely done for an encroachment, but the encroachment was created by her. So when she went to the county. The surveyor, Mr. Jaramovich, said, no, there are not two parcels. So if the parcels were creating the encroachment, if this is truthful, what was said in the letter, then Ms. Filippaitis, we should have said, thank you, Mr. Jaramovich. Thank you for saying that there's no encroachment. Thank you for saying that there is no lot line existing there. But instead of accepting that, which eliminated the encroachment problem, she went before the Board of Supervisors.
Excuse me, if you could wrap up your comments, please.
So before the Board of Supervisors, the only reason that parcel was created, and there was no notice, and nobody here had the opportunity to speak before the Board of Supervisors and present to them that the concern about the community. So the community is opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gretchen Leaf, to be followed by David Snyder.
Good morning. I live at 935 Arcady. I've been there for 3 years. It's a very special community. And, this is about community. How often do you see nearly unanimous outturn? I mean, it makes me feel so good because in Montecito, we've been through hell for 2 years from the ravages of Mother Nature, and how unfortunate that something like this could happen to such a lovely, special place as the Arcady Estates. It's development, it's lawyers. These people don't live here, and I just beg you guys to do the right thing for us as a community. I don't know what your roles are specifically designated to do, but this is about a little community in Montecito, and we just hope you support the majority. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is David Snyder, to be followed by David Alexander, and Mr. Alexander is our last speaker unless someone else wants to submit a speaker slip.
Thank you. My name is David Snyder. I may need more than 3 minutes. So if you want to give me 6 minutes, I'll hope I can wrap up my comments by then.
If you could first move the microphone closer to your mouth and speak
Sure.
into it, that would be a help.
Okay.
And if you could limit your comments. How much time did you say you want? 6 minutes?
6, please.
All right.
I wanted to thank the board for your thorough vetting of this information since we last met. I think that the matter as it came before you originally was seemed rather clear-cut, that it was a lot line adjustment and it really wasn't that big a deal. So I appreciate the efforts that the board members have made to try and acquaint themselves with the actual issues that are at stake here. And you've heard the very articulate comments of our neighbors who are really sort of fatigued with this matter. It's been going on a long time. The applicant has employed, really the best that money can buy in terms of legal help and consultants, which I don't bemoan that. But, we're just regular folks who are trying to protect our neighborhood and trying to keep the integrity of the lot size and the feel and tenor of the area the same as which we purchased our homes. I too find exception with the letter from Brownstein. There's just a number of factual issues that they know are not correct, and yet they try to make it seem as if that Mrs. Filippaitis has no intention of selling or developing the lot. Well, since the applicant bought the property, she has, since that time, gotten a water meter and a separate address. None of that ever existed. They say that they will not create a new buildable parcel. Well, I think that the staff has indicated definitively, and it has been reiterated a number of times here at this meeting, that nothing can be done with that parcel because it is a legal non-conforming use until these setback issues and the non-conforming issues are done away with. The applicant themselves and the applicant's very good legal counsel has advised you that they have several options of what to do, and they have a variety of options. I think what they're trying to do now is they're not tearing down the house because they don't like that option. It's not the most expedient or monetarily gratifying way to do it. So they're choosing a course of action that will negatively affect all of us. And, you can talk about that we won't notice or people won't notice, but it's going to affect property values. Everybody around in this whole area is over an acre. And to put 2 half-acre lots in there is just taking a substandard situation and making it and doubling it for 2 substandard areas. The applicant could, as it was noted, tear down the house and build one house there that would be in conformity with the neighborhood. And I think the applicant also very correctly pointed out that the city would then have a chance to review what they expect to put there and make sure it was in conformity with the neighborhood. But we all know that this is not in, if you agree with this, this is not in conformance with the neighborhood. It is an extra lot, and to sort of try to suspend reality and say that it's not to build create an additional lot is not true. It's not right. This letter also says the Arcadia Estates has no homeowners association. Well, you just heard from the president of the homeowners association. This letter says that the Arcadia Association has not taken any action. You've heard from the president of the association that they've taken action, and they got unanimous support of the board that says that this should not take place. I think the bottom line, there's a number of bottom lines. I think there's so many reasons why you should not approve this. I don't even see one reason why you should. But, we rely on you to protect us. We're just lay people. They have all these professionals who've been at it. They're very good at what they do. They're very clever. And they've tried to portray this as just a simple lot line adjustment, and it's really not. It's an undeniable fact that we will be left with 2 substandard situations if you do agree with it. And, the neighbors have spoken, I think, rather clearly. I've read through every letter that you received, and then I went around and talked with not only people in Arcadia, but all around there, and there wasn't one person who supports it. So I don't know right now of one neighbor that supports it, whether they are a member of the Arcadia Association or not. And, what is the reason to approve this? To benefit one real estate speculator who is...
Excuse me, if you could start wrapping up your comments, please.
Okay. I think to consider this and to approve it is sort of taking, at the expense of all the rest of the neighbors, ramming this through. And we rely on you guys to exercise your authority to deny it and to protect the neighborhood and protect the historical nature of the area. So I would encourage you, with this new information, I would encourage you to please deny this. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is David Alexander.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm David Alexander. I live at 733 Knapp Drive. And I just wanted to go on record as opposing this along with the rest of my neighbors. 8 years ago, my wife and I bought a home in Arcadia. We were snowbirds coming from Seattle, and we would come down for half a year and go back home to Seattle again. But I'd like to say a year and a half ago, we gave up our Seattle home, and we've become California residents. I've got that California driver's license in my pocket, and we decided that it was well worth it to pay the extra taxes and the extra money to be here in California, because it is worth it. But frankly, one of the things that was important to us, we fell in love with the Arcadia neighborhood, and we loved the look and the feel of it. And that's the reason that we gave up living in Seattle, is because we really found that we loved this home even more. And I just wanted to say, I recognize and appreciate the role that you all play in this. You're really our guardians. And as guardians, we hope and trust that you'll look after us just like you look after the rest of Montecito. And the things that you do here leave footprints, not just for our community, but for other communities like ours. And I certainly hope that you take that into consideration and oppose this lot line adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there are no other members of the public who are here who have not yet spoken, we will close public comment. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard? All right, this time we'll close public comment. Yeah. Mr. Carlson, you wanted to reserve a few moments to respond?
Chair, Commissioners, I'd first like to open this up to questions from you all so I can respond to those before I address any comments and clarifications regarding public comment.
We'll do that in a moment.
Okay.
But we want to give you the opportunity to reply to anything that's been said.
Absolutely. So first, I'd like to emphasize that Athena and the project planner hear these comments and recognize the value and the interest of the neighborhood in protecting the character of the neighborhood from future development. These comments are all appropriate comments that should be made if and when Athena and Craig elect to develop these parcels. None of these comments change anything about the findings you need to make. There's no public opposition finding that's part of this lot line adjustment process. The lots are developable now. Because just because the home straddles the lot line, that doesn't preclude all future development on these lots. These lots are not going to remain idle forever. They're going to remain idle for the foreseeable future. The applicant could demolish the current home on Arcadia Estates and build a home on Arcadia Estates and a home on Eucalyptus Hill. In fact, we ran the numbers last night, and at the current configuration, the construction of those homes would be larger than the construction following the lot split. It's about the same, but it's comparable in terms of floor area for the total development. This does not create new developable parcels. The certificates of compliance merely recognize the lot split that occurred in 1950. It was not a change to the configuration of the lots. It's merely a recognition of that the lot split occurred. Finally, I'd like to just, for point of clarification, the Arcadia Association, the property is not in the Arcadia boundaries of the Arcadia area. Athena and Craig pay into the Arcadia Association. The Arcadia Association is not a homeowners association. Homeowners associations are different from the configuration of the Arcadia Association. Arcadia Association is solely to pay for common space and road improvements to keep the area nice, which Athena and Craig intend to do from here on out and have done already. Again, I'd like to open it up to any additional questions you may have.
Well, we'll close the hearing and we'll go to commissioners' questions. Just a second. So do you have anything else you'd like to? No. All right, fine. So we'll now close the public hearing and we'll go to commissioners' questions and deliberations.
I kind of want to settle this
Commissioner
issue
Kupiec.
in my own mind about what is potential development. Without demolishing the existing structure, what potential development can occur on these two lots? So it seems like I'm hearing two different stories. What can I develop on lot number 1 without demolishing the building on lot 2?
Commissioner Kupiec, through the chair. So with current conditions, you cannot put any new structures on lots 1 or 2 because of current conditions. If those current conditions were altered, you can put structures on both lots 1 and 2.
I guess I'm not understanding because there are two legal lots here. What precludes lot 1 from being developed in some way?
Commissioner Kupiec.
Either by easement, other than a lot line adjustment.
An easement is not a viable approach. It conflicts
Okay.
with the county zoning ordinance, and the lot 1 or lot 2 could not grant lot 1 could not grant an easement to the home on lot 2 in order to build on lot 1. That's not part of the county code. The solutions would be to submit an application and submit a new lot line adjustment with the development. They would be demolish the existing home on lot 2, displace the current single mother and her son attending Cold Spring School, and build a new home on that lot, and then be able to build a home on lot 1.
But we'd be back here doing the same thing In order to do that, one would have to demolish that lot, create some shape of a lot that would be legal conforming, that a building could be built on, and we'd still be doing a lot line adjustment.
No, you could construct a home on the on two as configured.
I could meet all the setback requirements on Lot 2 and construct a building? Front yard, rear yard, side yard? I mean, I'm just looking at that footprint. And
Commissioner Kupiak through the chair. So we would have to see what the applicant would be proposing to develop on Lot 2, should that come before us. There may be potential for some sort of modification or variance to address some of those setbacks. Depends on what's being proposed.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Seno? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, Puliche.
This is addressed to you, I believe. Maybe I missed some history here, but when that house was it built on the conformation of this lot as it is now, or was it part of one parcel?
Commissioner Pliche through the chair. Unfortunately, that's not something I'm able to speak to. The original house was permitted in the 1950s, a little before my time, and the board's action in 2015 was prior to my involvement as well.
So you're telling me that this house was built not on the present parcel as it exists now. Lot 2, where the home is existing now, was built straddling two parcels at the time, or was it one parcel when it was built? Do you not know that? Or do we not? Is that sort of relevant to my thinking? I just need to know that.
Through the chair, Commissioner Pulisic, sorry.
It's all right.
So this Lot 2 was actually subdivided from the neighboring parcel on this corner. I believe it's around 1955 or 1957. The owner that purchased the subdivided portion of Lot 2 also owned Lot 1. So there are two separate deeds. There have been two separate deeds. There's throughout the chain of title, and the certificate of compliance recognizes that those two separate deeds. The prior property, why the priority property owner elected to build a property straddling the two property lines that he had purchased, I can't speak to that.
So but he was permitted to build on both lots.
I mean, it's an existing permitted dwelling.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from commissioners? I have a couple. Could I ask Mr. Patillo, please, to come to the podium? Thank you, sir. You introduced yourself as the president of the Homeowners Association, correct?
Of the Arcady Estates Association, Inc.
Okay. Do you agree that Lot 1 and Lot 2 before us are not within the geographic boundaries of your association?
No, I do not agree. The Arcady subdivision, as it was subdivided in 1948, does not include either of these lots or further lots that are in the corner between Eucalyptus Hill Road and Sycamore Canyon. However, the Arcady Estates Association was not created by that subdivision map or by the CC&Rs which were recorded then. It's an organization which has grown up subsequent for the purpose of maintaining the roads, the road signs, and neighborhood beautification.
Does the association have geographic boundaries?
Yes, there's a map I submitted with my letter that has it all in color. Essentially, it's all the houses on Knapp Drive, all the houses on Arcady Road, and all the houses on Cottage Lane as those private roads presently exist.
And your best information is that both lots 1 and 2 before us are within the geographic boundaries of the Arcady Association?
Lot 2, that whole southern line, fronts on Arcady Road and uses Arcady Road for access.
No, I appreciate that, but that's not my question. Is Lot 2 within the geographic bounds of the Arcady Association? Yeah.
We don't define ourselves by geographic boundaries. We define ourselves by, do you use Arcady Road, Knapp Drive, or Cottage Lane for access?
Okay, thank you for that. And then while you're here, does Arcady Association have any legal documents of record that pertain to the development of properties in the association?
No, sir.
Okay, so it strictly is for the maintenance, I believe I read, of the roads and some common areas and so on. Well, there's no common areas, but rather for the roads and beautification, is that correct?
Yes, the original CC&Rs say that any dwelling constructed must be approved by an architect appointed by the developer. That's never been done since 1948.
Okay. And if we could put up the project site, a proposal map. Yeah. At your meeting of the association, did you discuss whether there's any lot line adjustment as between these two lots that would be acceptable?
My understanding, and I speak subject to correction, is that the existence of the house at 740 Arcady Road doesn't conform with the setbacks. And so if you grant the lot line adjustment, then you freeze that house forever, because if anybody took it down, they wouldn't be able to put it back.
I'm sorry for that. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then, Mr. Carlson, if you could come up, I have a question for you, please.
Yes, Chair.
Your comments to us said that if your clients were granted the lot line adjustment and later seek to develop parcel Lot 1, that the process of application review and so on would then apply. Is that my understanding of your summary?
Of course, the county's development process would apply to any new application for new or remodel development applicable, any applicable.
All right, so that we get this clarified for the record, is it then your client's desire, if the lot line adjustment is granted, to develop proposed Lot 1 in the future, subject, of course, to the procedures and law of the county and its code?
Of course. The client, as the client has tried to do throughout this entire process, follow the county's recommendation of getting a lot line adjustment to address a nonconformity. Our client has the complete interest in hearing from the neighborhood in the eventual development of this parcel, if that occurs, and would follow the process as they've done this for the last 7 years.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. Commissioner Senower.
I would just like to make very clear that what was just commented on, future development, is not before us today. Okay, make that very clear. Thank you.
Commissioner Police.
Staff, hearing these comments by the neighborhood, does that have any bearing at all on this process as to deciding on whether or not you approve a lot line adjustment? How do you put into the voice of the neighborhood when you make this call by the staff to recommend this lot line adjustment?
So Commissioner Puche, through the chair, that is up to the Planning Commission. It's within your discretion to review all evidence, both that's been submitted by staff, public testimony, and under deliberation to determine what findings can be supported. Staff has presented findings both for approval and denial, and as Ms. Lair indicated today, staff continues to support the recommendations for approval and those findings. As based on the information and evidence that we have before us, the staff is recommending approval based on the findings needed to be made for lot line adjustments. So that question is better asked by the Planning Commission.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Commissioner Police. Oh. And I have one other question, perhaps of council and staff. Are there any other, so to speak, macro county policies with respect to development that we should be mindful of? As an example, the concept of affordable housing in our community.
So Chair Newman, I'm just going to echo what Commissioner Sinauer indicated today. What's before you today is just an application for a lot line adjustment. No other future speculative or other development is before you, and it would be outside of the scope of our review today to contemplate any other items that isn't before the Commission today.
Are there any other policies we should be considering in our deliberations?
Chair Newman, members of the Commission, I believe staff has presented all the relevant policies and ordinances that pertain to the request by the applicant today has been presented to you.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's no more questions or comments during deliberations, we're ready to proceed to decision. But I think before we do so, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess. Oh, Commissioner Police, you want?
I got one more question. I'm sorry for the. So we have 2 lots, and we get a lot line adjustment. Now, lot 2, the present home that sits on it, could that be removed and placed somewhere else, or does it make any difference when we now change the configuration of the 2 lots and make them nearly equal? Does that change anything about the use of lot 2?
Commissioner Police, through the chair, it does not change anything about the use of proposed lot 2. Should the applicant want to remodel, demo, rebuild the structure, they would have to come in for a permit application, and we would review it at that time.
So that would not change the potential for, or will it change the potential to enlarge the home by virtue of a larger FAR due to the larger size of the house, of the lot, pardon me?
There is potential for that. We'd have to review what they would be submitting, but there's that potential.
So what we're saying is we could have 2 homes on these 2 parcels, and the present home could be enlarged on that parcel, and then the other parcel could be built however they want, depending if it satisfies the county's FARs for that lot.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So Chair Newman, just to recap, those are great questions. I just want to advise the Commission that those are all speculations and not before the Commission today. So what's before the Commission is really narrow as far as whether or not the Commission can make the findings for the lot line adjustment.
Thank you for that. All right, we'll be in recess for 10 minutes, and then we'll resume. Thank you. There we go. Back on the record now, ready to reconvene the meeting. And we're now in deliberations with respect to the agenda item before us. Are there any more comments, questions, whatever from commissioners? Well, for myself, let me say this. First of all, I appreciate very much the community participation today and before. We requested this at our meeting. We apologize to all of you for the delay and the consideration of this matter, but we thank you for your interest. I'm conflicted about this, and I want to share with you and my colleagues the basis for that. To me, the lot line adjustment itself is not troublesome. If we look only at the issue of whether we should permit these two lots, which are established and binding upon us as two lots, if we look upon creating them in a different configuration, that itself is not at all troublesome to me. I think in some, though, the community comments and the concerns, which are much appreciated, speak to a future time and possible future uses of what might occur, particularly with respect to proposed Lot 1. And as has been mentioned both by staff and counsel for the applicant, the permitting process for land use, development, and so on is a robust one, and is an opportunity at that time to speak to something specific, something that is not hypothetical, something that is actually proposed by the lot owner, something that is tangible, and whether it complies with both the county code regulations and is consistent with the neighborhood is an appropriate consideration at that time. I don't think, however, it's an appropriate consideration right now, as has been pointed out by council and staff. I will say that I think if and when there is an effort made to develop proposed Lot 1, there will be a high hurdle to gain community support for it, but that's not our concern today. That is a time which is better left to the future determination, and that, in my view, is a time for the community's concerns, which are understood and appreciated, to be heard. So those are my thoughts with respect to the matter. All right, any other commissioners' comments or deliberations? Commissioner Center?
Yes, I did extreme due diligence on this for the past couple months. I even really went down the rabbit hole and viewed the June 2nd, 2015 Board of Supervisors hearing on this. It was about a 9-hour hearing, and this portion of the consideration of the surveyor and the applicant here today regarding if it was two lots or one, which resulted, after much discussion and evidence, then in fact two certificates of consistency were in fact given, and a matter of record and determination was established. So this is a very serious consideration on my part, to do due diligence, to go down the rabbit hole, to talk to staff, to talk to the applicant. I understand community participation and concerns. I have been where all of you have been. I have been before the Board of Supervisors. I have been before the Montecito Planning Commission on various issues, and I feel it's of great import to consider all public comment and concerns, and I have done so. I believe what is before us is very narrow, and it is difficult to isolate projection, assumptions, speculation, but indeed that's what we have to do. And I feel I have done my part to remain unbiased and to follow the evidence. I just wanted to make sure that that is understood. Thank you.
All right, if there's no more comments and deliberations, Chair will entertain a motion to either approve the lot line adjustment. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Kupiec.
I too am very conflicted about the decision that has to be made here. You know, on one hand, there's very little that I could imagine being sensitive to the things that we have to be sensitive to these days to create a situation that would even suggest that somebody would want to tear down a building that's perfectly suitable in order to redevelop another lot. You know, in terms of the decisions that got made in 2015, it's still very unclear to me what anyone could know when they decided to build that house straddling two property lines. You know, it's kind of unbelievable. But I also do believe that, you know, however we want to call this, because we must look into the future, that a lot line adjustment in this case is a lot split. It frees both parcels to be developed. It frees that existing parcel to remain as it is, and it frees the other parcel to be fully developed as another site. I mean, it's a nice parcel. I thank you for the tour that I took yesterday. I think it's a pretty site, but you know, I am also conflicted by the fact that if I look at the map, you know, these are all, you know, you had posted on your map. These are roughly 0.99 acre averages, an acre or more in almost all the parcels that surround these areas. A half-acre parcel seems inconsistent with, you know, what's there. I mean, I like half-acre parcels. I live on a half-acre parcel, but I knew it was a half-acre parcel when I bought it, and I had every expectation that the community that I was buying into was what it was. And I think that the adjacent parcels that are here could be very disserved by the fact that they had an assumption about what the community they were buying into or lived in would be, and that to increase the development capacity, you know, as I think there are other alternatives for this owner. I think, as I said, I think, you know, the other lot split is combine the two lots and create a completely different set of development opportunities that would probably be more consistent within the community. So,
Please.
that's all.
All right. Thank you. If there's no further comments and deliberations, Chair will entertain a motion to either approve the lot line adjustment and the findings as originally submitted at our last meeting as Attachment A, if that's the pleasure, or to deny the lot line adjustment per Attachment A in today's agenda packet. Is there anybody care to make a motion? Commissioner Senor.
I so move that the recommendations for approval be made of the lot line adjustment as presented originally in the October 16th staff presentation. Should I read specifically? Recommendations and procedures. The motion should include the following. Make the required findings for approval of the project specified in attachment A of the staff report. October 16th, determined the project is exempt from the CEQA and pursuant to CEQA guidelines 15305A as specified in attachment C, and approved the project. Case 16 LLA 00000003, subject to conditions of approval as attachment B of this staff report dated October 16th, 2019.
All right, thank you for that. Is there a second to the motion? I'll second the motion. Council?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I just wanted to offer, since we have an even number, if you'd like me to discuss the impact of a tie vote, or we can wait to see what the vote is.
Would you please tell us?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so a 2-2 vote would mean the current motion would fail to pass. And if there are no follow-on motions, then that would be deemed a denial of the project. But if there was a 2-2 vote, then the other options are make another motion and see if that garners a majority, or you could potentially continue it to a hearing with all 5 to see if that changes anything. And abstentions complicate the vote a little further. I can go into that or at the chair's discretion.
Thank you. So the motion is...
One second, you said it complicates. What is it? So explain that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so with the current 4 commissioners, if the current motion, say for instance, received 2 votes in support, 1 against it, and 1 abstention, that would carry, even though it's only 2 votes in support. And also, what would carry the motion would be 2 votes for it, none against it, and 2 abstentions would similarly carry the motion.
Thank you. All right, the motion has been made and seconded to adopt the staff recommendation for approval. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to our vote.
Commissioner Kupiec. Commissioner Senauer. Commissioner Police.
No.
Chair Newman.
Yes.
Motion is 2-2, motion fails.
Okay. All right. That concludes the matter. Thank you all for your participation today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The motion is, well, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's go on now to standard agenda item 2, Thomas Fire and January debris flow building report.
Sure, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Montecito Planning Commission will receive a report from the Planning and Development Department on rebuilding after the Thomas Fire and January debris flow.
Okay. Mr. Wilson.
And Chair Newman, members of the commission, we did receive the email last night, and we would like to refer to the chair if that document would like to be voted in by the commission as part of the record before we have our standard report.
All right, and thank you. For the record, Mr. Wilson's referring to a document which I obtained last night. It's an article captioned 2 years later, residential rebuilding efforts since the Montecito debris flow by Mr. Robert Niehaus, dated January 9th, 2020. All right. Without objection, we'll add that to the record. Is there any objection? All right. Thank you. We're ready to proceed.
Good morning, Chair Newman, Commissioners.
Excuse me for a moment. Just a minute. Could you close the door, please? All right, we're ready to proceed with the staff report, please.
Good morning, Chair Newman, Commissioners. So this is our briefing update. This safety inspection document that you see before you depicts the safety inspection report that we generate that shows the comparison of the initial safety assessments versus the current status of the same structures on site. So, moving to this graph here, so you can see the original inspections on the pie chart to the left compared to the current inspections with the pie chart to the right. As we discussed back in December, similar reduction in structures that have been red tagged. So there's a 41% reduction from the original inspection to now, and then a 12% reduction in structures that are yellow tagged and 53% that are green tagged. So this document shows you the summary report for permits related to the Montecito debris flow. There has been a slight increase in the number of applications that have been submitted since the December meetings. There have been 74 applications for planning permits, a total of 64 applications for exemptions, 2 land use permits, and 8 coastal development permits. And then on the right-hand side, this summary report talks about the building permit summary count. So 112 building permits have been submitted, 97 were issued, and then in addition to that, 183 counter permits have been issued over the counter. And then these graphs here just provide a little bit more data from February of 2019 up until this month, January of 2020. So it shows you the trend in planning and building permits that have been applied for and issued. So for the graph on the left, 42% of the permits applied for were issued, and then by this month, that number has increased to 70%.
Excuse me. Tess, do you have numbers, and maybe it's further on extensions, the January 9th? You'll bring that up.
Chair
Okay.
Newman, Commissioner Center. I'll bring it up at the end.
Thank you.
And then so the number of building permits has also increased with 90 permit applications submitted by February, and there's an average of about 2 applications that are submitted each month after that. This next document just provides some more statistics. So of the 524 parcels that were affected, the county has been in contact with 460 of them. And then this document here shows you what different cases the Montecito Planning Commission has heard since January of 2018. So a number of different items have come before you. And then this last pie chart shows you that 9 different planners have been assigned to cases relating to the debris flow, or related to the previous document that I provided. So the Montecito, the projects that have come before your commission. So of those projects, staff's taken between 1 to 6 projects to your commission. And then these pie charts at the end are things that are newer to this briefing. So this first one shows you the first cycle for buildings plan check, and just gives you some data regarding the time that it's taken to get through that first plan check. So 67% of the debris flow projects that were submitted were completed in the first plan check 0 to 10 days. So, and just to backtrack, this accounts for 117 permit applications in the building division. So it also shows that 23% or 26% rather, were completed within 11 to 30 days, and 7% took over 31 days or more. And then moving to the second review cycle, so this accounts for 52 projects, and 63% of those were done from 0 to 10 days. 35% were done 11 to 30 days, and then 2% were done 31 days or more. So as you can see, the trend is that we're trying to really get to the projects within that first 2-week time frame for both the first and second review cycle. And then I don't have a slide regarding the time extensions, but I did just take a look. It looks like we have approximately 30 time extensions that were applied for before the January 9th deadline. And so staff's working on compiling all of the different addresses. We had a number of people that applied for time extensions to make sure that they got in before then, but may not actually have a non-conforming structure on their property. So there is some work that staff's doing to see if those time extensions are really valid. And there may be more than 30. So there were some that were submitted directly to the first district that we haven't accounted for in our 30. So that number probably will increase.
Okay. Commissioner Seno?
And the criteria for the extension is non-conforming,
Commissioner
Check,
Senhauer
check,
through the chair.
check.
Yes, so it's if your structure was permitted as a non-conforming structure or use, and you haven't begun to rebuild, then you could request a time extension. What we had found is there are a couple that submitted a time extension, but actually had a conforming structure on their property, and so they really don't need a time extension. They don't have a time limit for those structures.
And the extension is for how long?
The extension would be for 24 months.
24 months. Thank you.
2 years.
And just as a matter of understanding, with respect to those applications that were made by people through the first district supervisor's office, are we counting those as being received on the date they were submitted to the supervisor's office as being submitted to county planning and development, hopefully?
Chair Newman, yes, that's correct. So we are counting anything that came in before January 9th, whether it was a phone call, an email, letter, or if it went through the first district. All of that will be counted.
Okay, thank you. For myself, I have a question with respect to the pending applications that have been before us and their status. Going down to the 1, 2, 3, 4th, and 5th items concerning Crown Castle, hearing pending, I assume, does that correctly refer to a hearing is to be scheduled by the Board of Supervisors?
So Chair Newman, just a clarification, I believe those is, the statuses have been updated by staff. Those are the two projects that were heard. And so those statuses should be the next step. So those are the two projects that were heard already. So the hearing isn't pending anymore.
No, I understand. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
We've already heard these two projects.
That is correct.
And made a determination. Has an appeal been filed with the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, Chair Newman, members of the commission, that is correct. There have been no appeals filed.
Okay, and are those appeals scheduled to be heard, and if so, when?
No, there has been no appeals
Oh, I'm
filed.
sorry, none have been filed. Okay,
Yeah.
so
the correct status
So
would
it
be-
should say
yeah.
closed.
Correct.
Okay.
So they're moving into the next phase of permit compliance and submitting the plan. So they're moving forward.
Okay. And is the second from the bottom, the other Crown Castle item, is that status correctly reported?
Chair Newman, so it's similar somewhat to the one above. So it looks like the appeal period expired for that one. And so the staff would just need to issue a permit and then close the case.
Okay. All right. Because what I was particularly curious to know is whether the ultimate determination we made, which included a strong preference for co-location as a default, et cetera, has not been appealed. So it's been accepted then by the applicant. All right. Thank you for that. And then also, Commissioner Center, you have a comment?
Hammond's Meadow, final processing. What's involved with the processing at the I would think we've heard that almost a year ago. So what's going on?
So, Chair Newman, Commissioner Steenauer, so that would be moving into the next phase as far as submitting the required information from that hearing and moving forward. I don't have an update today, but we can, at our next hearing, provide some information on Hammond's Meadow.
And just one other item, if I'm remembering correctly. With respect to the ordinance package, we had some recommendations that we passed on to the Board of Supervisors. They did have a meeting on that. Do I recall correctly that they adopted in part some of our recommendations, but not all of them? What was the outcome of that with respect to the telecommunications ordinance package?
Chair Newman, members of the commission, the board did hear and took action on the ordinance package end of last year, and they did adopt the ordinance package. I don't recall what they accepted and did not accept as far as recommendations from both the county and the Montecito Planning Commission, but it was passed, and so there was some changes. The board did take some action on that, but maybe at the next one we can provide a status update on what was accepted and approved. It's going to affect projects coming forward before the Planning Commission as far as what was actually accepted by the ordinance.
Thank you. And then lastly, with respect to the rebuilding, this is a blood pressure cuff that we're kind of using here, so to speak. Two questions come to mind. One, whether, and it may have been too late in coming, staff has seen before this article 2 years later, residential building efforts, and putting aside the conclusions, which are of course subjective, but is the data correct and reliable that's in this report? If staff would care to comment on that.
Chair Newman, Commissioners, yes, so I did have a chance to review the document, and that was my main question or concern. So for each of the tables or graphs that are provided and some of the discussion, it really is unclear what data is being used. So for instance, the first bar graph where they're saying no activity, I couldn't quite tell if from looking at our data, if they're referring to just the no contact with an owner, which from our standpoint would be a 12%, there's been no contact, but if they're incorporating projects that are inactive because we're waiting for an owner to take action or to work with their insurance company, we would look at that differently than that having no activity. So that's one of the things that I thought was different. And kind of going throughout some of the cost by type and status, I was unclear if that, I don't believe that that's the cost just for permitting, but I was unclear if that's what this author is indicating, if it's the permitting cost or if it's the total rebuilding cost and demolition cost. And then I have comments kind of throughout. So I think, if we understood where the data was coming from for each of these graphs, it would be easier to kind of compare what the author is stating and then what our data shows. And I'm sure staff would be happy to work
My understanding,
look further.
But again, is looking at page 2 of this report, that they use this map, the interactive map, and clicked on each parcel based on its status and so on, and utilize that data. But obviously I'm not the author. If they did that and accurately captured that data, I assume the county staff would agree that that data is reliable, or the best data available, I guess.
Chair Newman, yes. So if they used the data on our website that shows the red, yellow, and green tags for the structure tag component, that would be appropriate data to use. For where they're talking about the projects by status and project type and cost type. That would require probably a little bit more information. Some of the reports that you receive in your packet every month or each time you have a hearing, and those aren't necessarily captured in the map themselves because they're a little bit more granular.
All right, thank you for that. Commissioner Center?
Regarding Mr. Nyhouse, this 9-page white paper, maybe you'd like to call it. I don't know if it's help me here, if it's incumbent upon the county, you all, P&D, to redress any of these issues. It would be, I think your questions, we don't know the data, where it came from, should be addressed to him, and that's it. I don't think we need to do a parallel and answer paragraph by paragraph or metrics by metrics. I think it's incumbent upon the author to provide that for you, and I think that would be my approach if the county wants to basically approach the author with an email saying thank you, or we could do it. But I think it is not incumbent on the county to cite every metric and every point of his discussion paper. So I just kind of, what is the best approach do you feel? I'm not sure if this has been published somewhere in the Journal or Independent, or this just came to us. I don't understand, but if the public is aware of this, then the county probably needs to have an approach to address it.
Let me clarify, perhaps. I received this following my review of an article in the Montecito Journal. This report follows up on the one that was done a year ago, roughly, by the same company and the same author that we also had before us. I'm asked that it be circulated and shared for informational purposes only. I'm not asking that this be agendized or an item for action at all, but it has been published in the Montecito Journal in a summary fashion, and the link to the document that's before us today was referenced in that article. So that's the background. For myself, I have a question about page 13 of the report. On this report, the pie chart, I'm sorry, the staff report, disaster summary by status. No contact with owner representatives is reported at 12.2%, I guess as of January 13th, roughly. Is that I don't have prior months data. Is that a decrease? Has it been roughly the same? I'm trying to understand whether the outreach efforts, our public meeting and otherwise have resulted in any additional contacts from property owners in the affected areas.
Chair Newman, Commissioners, it looks like these numbers have stayed the same since the last hearing.
Okay.
So no, we haven't received any new contact from people that we haven't already heard from.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from commissioners with respect to Thomas Fire rebuilding report? Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. We'll then conclude that agenda item and go to the very last one.
So Chair Newman, just a quick reminder, before we totally close that out, do public comment. There's one person that may want to speak.
No? All right. So we'll go then to the last item, Commissioners' request for future agenda topics. Is there anything that commissioners would like to suggest for future agendas of the Planning Commission? Commissioner Kupiec.
I received a email correspondence yesterday through a local Montecito community group monitoring activities at the Miramar. And apparently they were concerned, and I don't know what code or where this falls under, that the plethora of Christmas lights that adorn the building for the holidays are not Christmas lights. They are intended to remain permanently. I don't know where to go with this information, but I can tell you that from my vantage point, that's kind of disturbing. I don't know if there are permitting issues involved, but the truth be known, I mean, there are a lot of lights at that intersection. I mean, they've got trees wrapped. This doesn't look anything like Montecito looked like before. And people even for the holidays had comments about how aggressive this lighting scheme was, and to imagine that this is the permanent condition, I think is problematic for a lot of people who live there, including me.
Mr. Wilson, you want
So
tell me where to go,
so,
so to speak. Jeff.
that's an invitation.
So, just a reminder, this agenda item is to seek information to put on future agendas, so we're not agendized to discuss this. If you do receive any requests that may be related to code enforcement compliance, I would recommend that those questions or comments be referred to our compliance team, and they can research that information. So I think that particular item would be better handled through our enforcement compliance team.
Okay. Any other requests for future agenda items or topics from commissioners? Okay. If there are none, Chair will move, or will entertain a motion rather to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. We'll stand adjourned until our next meeting. Thank you.